Okay. Hi, SOTA creative writing students. So I'm here again with another one of my interviews with writers I know. Today I'm going to be talking to Tracy Hook, who lives here in Tacoma with us. She's originally from Brooklyn, and she and I, for a time, went to the same high school, but not at the same time. So we have some shared background. And Tracy is a novelist. Her novel, Natural Elements, is awesome. I introduced Tracy to some of my students, I think, 2 semesters ago. So if you were in my class when I was in the 1950 building, you would have seen her come in one day and talk to us. So I'm going to talk to Tracy about basically the same things I've been talking to the other writers about. Her process of becoming a writer, who she was as a young person, as a young writer, and what she's learned and what has come easy to her and what she's had to work on. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Hi,
Um,
students.
so my first question that I'm asking everybody is, what did you write when you were in high school? And also, we talked a little bit earlier, and you said that you wrote when you were a little kid too. So I'd like to hear some about that too. Like, when did you start writing, and what were the kinds of things that you were writing as a child and a high school student?
Okay. So I remember starting to write at the age of 7, and I mostly wrote some short stories that I would share with my mom. And most of those stories were about animals, and which is kind of odd because I didn't have any animals and I didn't really care about having any animals. But it kind of came through in my writing, this love, I guess, I had within that I didn't really realize I had it. And I wrote about animals that lived in houses and lived on farms, but nothing like Animal Farm. But they were animals that farmed their own land. They had their own homes. They made jam. They they were gardeners and all of this stuff. And for a kid who grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, this was a life that was so different from my own. But I really enjoyed writing those stories, and it kind of reflected a life that I didn't have, but somehow I felt that it was my own.
And then as you got older, when you were in high school, like my students, what were you writing about then?
Okay, so when I was 7, I started writing, and then I didn't write for a while. High school was a little bit difficult at the beginning until I transferred to the school I graduated from, CDS school. And then I started writing again. And then I started writing more about the environment, that my school environment, the neighborhood that I was going to school in, the people that were there, the shops, the park, the diversity, the richness of those who lived in that community compared to those who lived where I lived, and the friends that I made. And most of those friends that I made lived in that neighborhood. And so their experiences were different than my own. So I started to write more about that aspect of my life, and how different it was from where I grew up, how yet there were similarities, how well I got along with my friends who were so different and so diverse, and just the school itself, how unique it was for me being there. It was so, such a different learning environment than when I had ever experienced. And so most of my writing at that time was a reflection on this new life that I found.
That's really interesting. So even in both of them, it's like you were drawn towards a kind of life that was different from your own, and you were exploring it in your writing, like this animal world, but also this world of people in Manhattan. And it's funny because when I went to college, that's what I was also writing about too, was the people around me, because they were so different. And it was like, um, it's weird to say exotic, but kind of exotic. Like, whoa, like their lives
Mm-hmm.
are so different, is all I can say. Um, that's cool that you did that. So, having started that way, what was it about writing that came easily to you? Like, what did you feel like when you started doing it that you were like, oh, this is the part that I can do?
Um, I guess I really started taking the writing very seriously when I started college.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another transition, you know, going to college is different. But I went to school in Staten Island, so I didn't go very far from home. But I had this one creative writing class, and actually wasn't creative, it was English 101. And all of the students, we were all doing so poorly that the teacher, she came in one day, she threw her books on the desk, and she said she couldn't believe how awful we were as writers. And she wanted us to do this project where we had to write about ourselves. And I remember everyone in the room groaning how that was the last thing anyone wanted to do. And so after class, I talked to her and I said, I don't really think I could write about myself, but is it okay if I create a story? And she said, well, let me start writing and let me see the first few pages, and then we'll decide whether or not you can. So I started writing, and I started writing about this young woman who lived in Harlem in the 60s. And I must have wrote about maybe 5 or 6 pages, and I showed it to her, and it was written as a journal. And she said, wow, this really sounds like your life. She says, I'm going to give you the go-ahead to continue writing. And so I continued writing, and at the end of the class, I got an A. And I was so shocked. And she said, I want you to continue writing this because it seems so much like your life. And even though it isn't, she said, I think you have something here that you should continue. And that's what I did. I eventually completed completed the whole manuscript. And then I lost it. So now,
Did you really?
now I'm actually working on it again.
Like, was it a physical copy or was it a digital copy? Like, what did you lose?
I lost both. I lost the digital and the handwritten copy. But I believe I have like the original, because I actually have the original book somewhere in my basement. I just have to look for it.
Yeah.
And go on from there.
Wow. So when we had talked earlier, you said what came easily to you was the flow of the words. And what I'm also wondering is like how you seem to be one of these people who can completely inhabit somebody else's life or another reality, because it sounds like in this piece, like she said, it could have been you and it wasn't you. You were making it up, right? So you can put yourself in the shoes of your characters, maybe. Would you say that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that beginning, what was it? Because you went to graduate school for writing, correct?
Yeah.
What was it that you had to learn or that you wanted to learn that didn't come naturally? Like, what was the part that really had to be skill for you?
Okay. So I still struggle with like, I still struggle with vocabulary and structure. And so being in the program helped me a whole lot with that. And getting feedback from my cohort really helped with that. And reading other people's work.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think, you know, as a writer, I think it's really important to be able to read and to read other people's work and to get critique, you know, to have them to critique your work and you to critique their work. And I think that's how you grow as a writer. And I think that was the biggest thing that I've learned from being in the program was working with other people to develop my craft. And I hope in a way that I was able to help them as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's what I'm striving to teach my students, is to learn to listen and to learn what a gift it is to another writer to really listen to their work and be able to give feedback about your experience, and then to have that gift returned when they listen to your work, and that we can grow that way as artists without it having to feel like we're learning, right? Like
Right.
we are learning, but it's a different kind of learning. It's really it's about relationship, really, like having relationships with other writers.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a necessity because I don't think you can grow without having that. in place, having been around other people who are developing their craft and learning, and you learn with them, and you kind of feed off of each other. I think, although writing, when you're sitting down to write, it's a solitary thing. You really won't be a good writer unless you are learning from others, I think. I think that's the most important thing about writing.
And is that something that you had to learn, or did you take really naturally to that?
It was something I had to learn because I was so used to writing in isolation that I wasn't even really aware that I needed to be around a group of people. I did learn from reading other novelists, reading other books about writing, but it really didn't fit until I got into the classroom with other people who were writing and sharing.
That's beautiful. I think we come from the same orientation when it comes to creativity, because I've had that same experience myself, like going from being very solitary and not sharing. I feel like a huge part of what I had to learn that I always want to give the students is like that it needs to be a safe space, right? I was so afraid to share my writing for so long. I was terrified, so I wanted to keep it to myself. But then when I discovered a safe space in a safe workshop environment, it became really fun to do it. But you need to have a good teacher who can create that space, right? Like not every space is made for that. And I'll just give a plug to Jackie Casella, who runs Creative Colloquy. Do you know her?
No, I don't.
So she has a monthly reading series that's usually in person, and now she's doing it every week online. And she creates such a supportive environment. And I've been going and sitting in on it lately, and it's reminding me that I've had this fear, like I don't want to read my stuff in public until it's perfect, right? Well, A, it will never be perfect. And B, being in the environment she creates, I just want to read whatever I have. Like she makes it so that it becomes a positive experience to even share the stuff that's not working, because she really gets the people in the community to give good feedback and encouragement. So yeah, you should check it out.
Yes, it really sounds interesting. I would love to check it out.
Yeah, I'll send you the information about it. And I'll, you know what,
Okay.
I'll send it to the students too. I'll put it in our Microsoft Teams, and she does it every Monday night, and it's great. It's like anybody can tune in and listen, and she's pretty much an open invitation for people to request to read also. So
That's great.
a good format for local writers. And it's funny because we're all local, but actually anyone from around the world could come and sit in on our Tacoma story circle right now.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's on Zoom.
The students might really enjoy something like that too.
Yeah. Students, I have asked Renee if we could do it. I did not get to go ahead. So stay tuned and we'll see. Maybe we can do it sometime. So I had some more questions, and I want to be mindful of time. I don't want us to go too long. This is two questions. First of all, Tracy, why do you write? And why do you write what you do?
Okay. Well, I write because I have to. If I didn't write, I don't think I would not only not grow, but it's a part of me. And I don't flush out these stories that are in my mind, that are in my head. I don't think I could be a successful person because the writing is my life. It's just as important as anything else in my life. And even though I don't do it every day, there's always thoughts that are in my head. And that when I don't know if other writers feel the same way or are capable of doing this, but I don't need to write everything, jot something down to remember it. When I sit down and I start writing, it just flows. And I've been one of the people that, well, I hardly ever get stuck. Like I did get stuck on natural elements once, and it was just this one scene, and it took me months to get through it because I wasn't sure how to write it down. But it was in my head, and I just had to learn how to take the time to really sit down and flush it out. And that was like the one time that was hard for me. But other than that, I've never really had a problem writing anything down, to save it. I've been lucky that way. But I guess it just shows that it is my life.
Yeah.
That, like I couldn't be productive if I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. That's great because you answered my next question, which was, what do you do when you get stuck? I've been stuck. I got stuck on the second half of the story that I've been writing lately. And then yesterday I started journaling about how I was stuck in this part, and the solution came. It was almost like I was talking to somebody about it. So that's how I worked it out, by actually writing about the problem I was having. How did you do that? How did you work it out?
Well, I was on a plane. I don't remember where I was going. And I said, you know what? I got to get through this right now. And I just sat back and I thought about it, and I thought about it. I thought about the character. I started hearing that character's voice. And that's when it came to me. But it had taken a while to get to that point, though, for me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure how to do it
Yeah.
at first. I really wasn't. Because I never had to go through it before.
Yeah.
So I had to develop this way of working through it.
Yeah.
And then it was okay.
So are there, I'm glad you brought up that you think it's so important for writers to read. Are there particular writers that inspire you in terms of style or technique, or do you want to talk about the writer that you're reading right now?
She inspires me a lot, but there is no way I can use maybe a scene I can create, maybe reading some of her work, but her style, there's no way I can touch that. I mean, because she's just so skillful at it. But let's see. My favorite writers are Toni Morrison and James Joyce and some other people, but I don't really use them to help me write, though. Mm-hmm. It's just that because of who they are, they inspire me to write.
Yeah.
But I guess I could say it depends on what I'm reading, and then what I'm reading, and sometimes that can just influence my writing. And it doesn't matter what author it is, who the author is, or what style of writing it is, or usually it's a novel, but it doesn't matter what type, what the writing is about. It could just be a little snippet of something in that book that can influence me to write, I think.
Did you have a favorite book when you were in high school?
The Dubliners by James Joyce.
Really? I was just thinking about it recently. Wow. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's so, because I was going down my mind when I was thinking about, okay, I'm going to write a short story. Who do I want to read right now to help kind of get the prime the pump? And Dubliners was on my short list of things to read right now. And I thought, there's something about, like, I've read a lot of James Joyce, and I like him intellectually and as a student, but it never really hit me. So I was like, it's not going to be James Joyce. But I know that for other people, and then I was reading a book about writing recently, and it was like, oh, The Dead. It was like the person was writing all about the story, The Dead, and how it's the most wonderful story. And maybe I need to reread it, because I was like, yeah, I read The Dead. So that's something that I love. I love asking other people what they love to read, because the reason we have so many books in the world is that everybody likes something different. And I love Toni Morrison. And Toni Morrison sort of reawakened in me recently the desire to write and how the world can be created through language, and the world as the writer wants you to experience it can be created through language, and how you can be taken through an experience through language. Um, but I was also thinking about Toni Morrison, and she's the one who I don't dare like I could never. That's how I feel about Toni Morrison. Like I could never. But I've read her to my students. I read her to my students, I think either at the beginning of the semester or last semester, because I don't think any of them had read Toni Morrison except maybe one of my students. And I really wanted them to have that experience. And I'm so glad that they got to hear it in our class. So that's it. Any last words you'd like to say to high school writing students?
Yes. I think that don't worry about what you're writing about, if it's good or if it's bad. Just get it out. Just get your story out. Get it on a page, and develop it. You know, kind of stew in it, and don't be afraid to share it with someone else. Someone that you're comfortable with, though, and share it with someone else, and let them, read your work and give you some feedback. The feedback can be very helpful with your story. And write. If you write in your journal, that's fine. It doesn't matter how you write, on a computer, iPad, paper, typing, whatever. Just get your thoughts down. That's the most important thing, getting them down. And it's amazing how you see your subject develop, and be proud of what you write, because this is coming from within you. And, that's what makes your story unique, and that's what makes it special, because it's coming from within you. And you're seeing yourself in a different light. You're going to see this character developing in a new light. Maybe it may come out to be something that you've never expected. And, it's a different you. And taking your environment, help that, whatever's around you, if you can bring that into your work, that's wonderful. But don't be afraid, and just, keep at it, because you're going to get there. You're going to develop into who you're supposed to be by believing in yourself and being around people who are positive and willing to share your, work with you, help you be the better writer that you are. Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm so moved by that. Thank you for saying that to my students. Thank you, Tracy.
Oh, anytime.
And students, I'll see you next week with another video, and keep sending in your work to our Microsoft Teams, and one day I'll do a class where I'll read it and we'll all give feedback in video. Okay, take care. Bye. Thanks, Tracy.